Okay, everybody, welcome back. On to our next project. We're going to be working in the galley and getting our galley trimmed out and built and put together. So that's what we got coming up on this video and following videos. Now, Michelle and I had decided, well, let's do something special for the galley. What about maybe some type of a river table? And Michelle's like, yeah, but I want a blonde wood, maybe with a little bit of color in it. So we went down to People's Exotic Hardwoods in Cantonment, Florida, which is just outside of Pensacola. And we went down there looking around, and immediately when we saw this piece of curly maple, and I know it probably isn't showing up in the video, but this is a really nice detailed curly maple. And so we found this 10-foot long board, 8.5 inches wide. And we decided, yep, that's it. All right, how much? And we paid our price and we came home. Now this morning I came out and I've cut this board in half. And that's going to give us, with the epoxy river, we're looking at 19.5 inches of countertop space. And this is going to be the countertop in our galley. And we're going to do a blue epoxy river. Well, Michelle's like, I don't want just epoxy river in between the boards. I want some type of a live edge feel to it. I was like, okay. So I decided we're going to come out and we're going to cut one squiggly line through here. And then we'll do that on both sides. And that'll give us some type of effect. And I was like, well, let me get something to write on so we can kind of draw it out over the boards rather than just straight away drawing on the boards. So I went and pulled this little thin piece of wood out and I laid up here. I was like, okay, now let's, over the top of this wood, let's scribe out what we want. And Michelle's like, no, let's do this. Let's lay it up here and take the pencil and let's draw the live edge onto the board. Move it over onto the other board and draw another live edge. So this is what we're coming up with. And I was like, man, I really like that idea. I think it's turning great. But I don't see those pencil lines right there, but that's what we're looking for a live edge profile. Now what we'll do is when we get ready to pour our epoxy here in a few minutes, we're going to put these boards 2 inches apart and we're going to tape up and we're going to prepare for epoxy after I take the jigsaw and I cut these profiles out on both of these boards. So that'll give us 19.5 inches of countertop space with the epoxy river down the middle. So we're looking at 2 to 3 inches of epoxy. And we're looking at some type of a blue to a teal blue. We don't know until we mix it up and pour it how it's going to look. We've done epoxy before, so we know what we're doing. But every time you mix color in, it's a little bit different than you did last time. So that's what we're looking at. We're going to go ahead and get busy cutting these lines out, and we'll be right back with you. Michelle, just get a few seconds of me cutting this part of the video and then eliminate everything else. I'm going to try to take it a little easier so the camera doesn't vibrate. Hopefully you can get the shot. Dinner bell just rung, so let me get a few seconds of this and we'll go in and eat. All right, everybody, we're back. We've got this thing out here. We've got it on melamine to protect our countertops from any spills. We brought it out here to our outdoor kitchen because when you put our level down on here, I know this is perfectly level, and so I don't have to worry about resin going to one end and overflowing and making a big mess. In case there is some type of a spillage, we've got the melamine out here to protect our countertops. Well, what we did to prepare for this pour was we flipped the boards upside down and we took the tie-back tape you see right there on the roll, and we put down tie-back on the back side, and then we flipped it back over. We put these plywood pieces on the end just to hold it square. And we've got our, the only way we measure this is just 19.5 from outside to outside. We didn't worry about what the inside dimensions are. That's the only thing we were worried about. So we've got our resin out here. We're using super clear tabletop epoxy. This is food safe. The mixture is 1:1. We've got our fiberglass resin out here, and we were going to try to use those pumps, but the pumps didn't like this because this was super thick. I don't guess it's warm enough, and it didn't pump through the pumps very easily. So we just put that back, and we just pour 1 container of epoxy and 1 container of resin. We poured it into this. These are 16-ounce containers, and then we poured it into our 41-ounce parquet bucket here, and this is starting to react. We've got our food color in here, and we'll go ahead and pour this out, and we're going to see where this lands up. We should have to do 2 of these in order to get the epoxy in here that we need. We know we have to do 2 for sure, and we'll probably have to top up with a little bit of extra because I cut these boards a little bit wider than I had figured that I would need, but I had plenty of epoxy to just go with it. So that's what we did. We just went with it, and we put the we got our board.
Okay, go ahead.
So we just cut our boards how we wanted them. We knew we had plenty of epoxy to work with, so that's what we see here. Now you see there'll be a little bit of a spillage going over the top. That's okay. We can come back with a sander and sand that off once that cures. But I'm just going to try to scrape the bottom of this container without making too big of a mess.
And these were 2 even boards, but we went and just cut out the center to make it look, you know, uneven, like a river would flowing. I didn't want it to be just plain and straight, so Randall cut in all these little curves and squigglies in there so it would be, you know, more like a real true river.
All right, that's our first pour. All right, guys, we're finishing up our second batch here. We're getting ready to pour it. I just want to make sure that I got all the sides. It is well mixed. If it's not well mixed, it will not set up properly. And sometimes it could even take days for it to cure. But I think we're on the right track here.
Spin it too much. Yeah, get those stripes in there.
All right, one of the things we want to show you is after you pour this in here, you can take your stick and make designs. And so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to go ahead and pour this in and then work in some designs. All right, we got our resin in. We're going to have to do one more pour, but I want to go ahead and demonstrate to you what I mean by doing the designs. See there, we could just swirl in some designs. One more thing I want to show you. When your resin starts to cure, it generates heat and it starts to push bubbles up from the reaction that it goes through. You get your propane torch, and if you get the camera right down here and watch this, watch the bubbles just pop.
Beautiful.
And that takes the bubbles right out. Now you don't have to do that several times because those bubbles will keep coming back to the surface, but just keep them popped. Got a little too hot on that tape. Okay, everybody, we've got the countertop epoxied. We've got it installed. Since we've got it installed, I didn't want to mess up the final coat, so we went ahead and put it in yesterday, and we started building out the cabinets. Now that I'm confident that we're not going to mess this counter up doing a build out, we went ahead and put one more finish coat on it. And I taped off around it. I mixed up a little bit of epoxy. I rolled it out. Had a little air bubbles in it. I grabbed the little propane torch, and I got a few bubbles in it now. Light the torch and just wave the torch over it to knock those bubbles right out of there, so you get a really good finish. And I hope the camera can pick up all the details of the curly maple, because it's really beautiful. But once this dries, we're going to come back over with a polish. We're going to polish it up. We're going to get it as shiny as possible, and maybe even put a varnish protective coat over the top of that. But we just want to give you a little quick update of what's going on with the countertop.